Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Gungans and droids across our beloved empire. This here is Arnold Howlnet News, the only news you'll ever need, because you have no other choice. And today, finally, after many weeks of waiting, we finally have Admiral Raddus Profundity. It's coming to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes with the full entire kit reveal. And just a brief reminder, the Profundity is going to be added to the game Wednesday, August 31st, but the event's not going to start until September 1st, and we're going to do a lot of testing on several matters. 3 things I want to know about, but can I just quickly laugh at this real quick? Just a quick summary. This looks like it's supposed to be like the Jedi Master Kenobi of ships, where it's controlling turn meter. We're seeing for it's not quite the first, but being able to apply detrimental effects to the enemy captors. I know we have stuns. For example, with the Malevolence here, it does have an instant kill ability, and that's what my initial reaction was to laugh. So one of the problems is if you're going to compete with the Executor, which that's their intention, you need an instant kill. So once you get the 100% download progress, which is the core concept of the kit, building up, getting the data, presumably Leia's Corvette sending out, and the capital ship just goes for it. And you get all these poor people left behind like, yo, bro, how are we supposed to get out of here at this point? So I think that's something to consider, is that when we get these Galactic Legend ships, they're supposed to be an insta-kill type of functionality. But the 3 questions I have: 1, how's it going to be on offense? 2, how's it going to be on defense? And 3, probably maybe even more important, what's going to happen to the Admiral Akbar fleet? Very much so like we anticipated, the Raven's Claw, the Kyle Katarn ship, is likely meant to be a semi-Millennium Falcon replacement, which is what we kind of saw when we did some initial testing a while ago. Raven's Claw is not going to be a part of this fleet, it looks like, because Millennium Falcon seems like it's going to be necessary for this fleet. However, in their pre-GIF gameplay, you don't really see Millennium Falcon anywhere out here. Outrider is obvious. They put a lot of direct synergy with the Profundity and the Raddus here. So let's go check it out. There's a couple important things I do want to point out here. Take a look at Admiral Raddus' Pride and Joy Profundity in the kit reveal. Also, please let us know what you think about the new format, which combines Dev Insight and kit reveal into one location. Thank you. My feedback would be I like it, and I would prefer this be in the Dev News rather than Arena Character and Strategy, because this is a little bit more hidden. Dev News and announcements, probably the better place to put all this stuff here. So right here, Profundity is going to be attacking out of turn, kind of a thing that we don't really see. Normally you have to wait for the capital ship to take a turn, then use an attack. You can call the Profundity to attack out of turn, and when they do, daze is applied to the enemy capital ship. And I'm thinking this is probably more so a thing controlling TIE Fighter pilot and maybe Tarkin, for example, getting turn meter. When TIE Fighter dodges, it feeds turn meter to any allied capital ship. When enemies or allies are being defeated, Tarkin's capital ship gains turn meter. So maybe they saw this was something they needed to address here. Ultimate is used to remove the enemy capital ships from the battlefield, giving it parity with the Executor. Now, another thing, turn meter manipulation is turned off for both teams when Profundity is chosen. So pretty much Jedi Master Kenobi is the king of turn meter control. Seems like the Profundity is going to be like that. When a rebel ally gets a critical hit, there's a chance to call another rebel ship to assist, including the Profundity, and that seems like it's going to be great with Millennium Falcon, which is why we're kind of seeing that in the synergy suggestions here. And there are going to be benefits for rebel cargo ships, so Outrider, for example, and rebel crewless tanks. Wonder what that's going to be. Obviously, the rebel Y-Wing, again, pulling a necessary component, semi-necessary. The necessary components to the Akbar fleet are mostly Biston, Biggs, and Cassian. Cassian's the best reinforcement to start off with, and a Millennium Falcon. Usually rebel Y-Wing, you don't call him until about, the second reinforcement, so maybe not necessary. We'll have to be the judge of that. So first thing they note here, this is question number 1. How is it supposed to fit in the meta? Of course, we'll be the judge of that, but their intention is that it's supposed to be able to defeat a defending Executor because they're of equal investment, more or less, slightly more with the Raddus being needed at Relic 9. In the flip situation, allegedly, with the same Executor attacking a defending Profundity, the battle should fall in the Executor service. So think of this as kind of like an unofficial Galactic Legends. All Galactic Legends are meant to counter each other to a degree, but some don't, and some are better than others. We'll be the judge. And keep in mind, when the Executor first came out, it was kind of underwhelming, right? It actually got buffed later on. And apparently that's one reason why they're requiring it at High Relic, which I don't buy. Piet was kind of needed at a high relic, and it wasn't the relic that was the problem. It was the kit that made it a little bit underwhelming. In order to get Profundity a good initial impression, we wanted to ensure that the crew of the ship would be on par with the Relic 9 Admirals Piet that are on a good chunk of Executors out there. Okay. It's all right, CG. I understand. You just tell us you want us to spend more resources. It's okay. It's all right. We understand. You don't need to answer on the topic. Anyways, kit reveal time. Those are important things to list out that I figured were worthy of conversation. Starting off with a basic, no turning back now. If this ability is used, I keep this freaking image is stuck in my head of just the capital ship dipping out in the middle of the battle. All right. Anyway, sorry. Let's keep it going. If this ability is used during Profundity's turn, deal physical damage to target enemy and grant a target ally a bonus turn. Whew. That's kind of a big deal right there. A basic bonus turn capability. Generally, basics are one of the most underwhelming things. I think probably the best basic ability in the game is likely Malevolence's basic and stun potentially. So otherwise, this is the best basic ability I've seen on a capital ship. If the target ally is a rebel, they gain 50% offense and increase their download speed by 10%. I reckon this is gonna be pretty fast. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get Admiral Akbar and the Outrider to get a decent download progress going. And you can ignore taunt if that ally was a rebel and inflict buff immunity on their target for 1 turn on their next turn. If the enemy already had buff immunity, stun them for 2 turns, which can't be able to resist. We don't have a lot of buff immunity capabilities in the game. We got a couple, like for example, with Karth. That's gonna be critical for getting around, maneuvering around the Hounds too. So that's kind of big right there. And if you do call the Profundity to attack on a turn, when they assist out of its turn, deal physical damage and instead inflict daze for 1 turn, which can't resist it. So you have abilities that happen during the Profundity's turn, and then you have what happens when the Profundity is attacking out of turn. So kind of a new thing. We don't really have these 2 branched basic abilities for capital ships. Moving on, first special, Unconventional Maneuver, and we have a cooldown of 4. So the final text is written as such. Increase the download progress by 10%. Dispel all debuffs from target ally, and they assist twice. So, you know, we kind of got like a cleanse capability on side of the Executor. Well, we have a kind of a cleanse on this side as well. At the end of the turn, target enemy is inflicted with debuffs for each instance of physical and special damage they receive during this turn for 2 turns, which can't resist. So this is kind of I've always said this. I think the kit design for a lot of these characters, I feel like most of these ships and characters are pretty slam dunkalicious. There's only been a few. Like, I wasn't crazy about the Resistance Bomber, and of course there's a few characters that weren't crazy about, but for the grand majority of them, I think the kit designers create something kind of interesting. Nonetheless, when there's 1 instance of damage, critical chance down, whatever. Not crazy. I mean, this might slow down rebels if you're trying to throw Akbar up against them, perhaps. 3 instances of damage, you get breach. Okay. 5 instances of damage, burning. Okay. 7+ instances of damage, ability block. Okay. And then 9+ instances of damage, shield disruption. So getting through that protection, for example. So this shouldn't be all that complicated because Outrider's basic already does several instances of damage, and maybe you have Millennium Falcon calling some ships in for the assist. I don't think it's going to be very uncommon if you have the ideal lineup to have something in this 7 to 9 range here. So this could actually be kind of disgusting to get all these different varieties of debuffs to apply. So kind of an interesting little thing we got going on here. All right. Let's go. And plus, keep in mind as well, the target ally, you're going to get them to assist twice here. So there's going to be ways to get this to work in our favor, I think. Next up here, the Rebel fleet has arrived. Cooldown of 4 here. Dispel advantage, stealth, and tenacity up from all non-rebel enemies. Kind of a very specific thing. Maybe this is trying to leave a vulnerability, perhaps, for Akbar to be potential. Because keep in mind, you know, we usually find a semi-soft counter, then maybe a very solid counter that's not involving a meta top-end fleet of some sort. So this is very interesting. Dispel advantage, stealth, and tenacity up from all non-rebel enemies. So lots of tenacity up, for example, on an Executor crew. Each enemy that lost advantage this way is inflicted with vulnerable for 2 turns, and each enemy that lost its stealth this way is inflicted with mark. What is that calling out? That's really, in my opinion, assuming we're talking about Executor match. Of course, there's other stealth situations out there. This seems like it's calling out Xander de Blood. Xander de Blood is the core is really the core of it. Razor Crest too, don't get me wrong, but Xanadu Blood spamming Breach is huge for the Exactor, and it's always hiding in itself, so you can't really get to it right away. This seems like it's calling that out. Each enemy that lost Tenacity up is inflicted with Tenacity down. Big deal for Houndstooth, for example, getting stuns, bigger hits, and those ability blocks. These debuffs can't be dispelled, evaded, or resisted, so locked in place. Rebel allies with full health gain critical damage up for 2 turns, and Rebel allies recover 25% health, and then they gain bonuses based on the roll. Attackers will get offense up, cool. Health and healers and supports gain stealth for 2 turns. Crewless tanks. This is where we're finally getting rewarded for crewless tanks or crewless ships, because the Executors penalizing crewless ships because they can just completely allow you to just ignore them. So kind of a nice thing that we're finally getting a way to get a dedicated taunt on the crewless tank, so at least it's doing something a bit more often. Gain taunt for 2 turns and 4 stacks of reinforced soul. So this literally sounds like the Rebel Y-Wing is going to be necessary for this. All right, moving on. We're into the unique ability finally. Oh man. Word vomit. This is where if you weren't blown away yet or surprised at this, let's check it out and see what this says. I say we fight. At the start of the battle, Profundity gains 10 speed for each dark enemy. Now we don't know what the speeds are right now, but I'm assuming it's going to be fairly fast. I'm wondering if it's going to be finalizer level fast. That's what I'm curious about. Profundity gains 10 speed for each dark enemy, including the capital ship, until the end of its turn. An ally rebel cargo ship, so Outrider, for example, Millennium Falcon, gain 4 stacks of reinforced hull. You're not cool anymore, Razor Crest. We're just giving reinforced hull to all these fellas out there. So literally that's calling out the Outrider, that's calling out the Millennium Falcon. Let me double check. I believe I'm pretty sure the Ghost is also, let's see, let's go to cargo ships. Yes, so actually there's quite a few. Bring them on over for a second. Take a little break from here. There's quite a few Rebel cargo ships. Phantom, forgot about that. That's a cargo ship. Millennium Falcon, of course, is one. And Outrider, which is the more obvious one, then of course Ghost, as I mentioned here. So that's, I was actually, I kid you not, the other day, because we had the stupid cargo ship event, I was like, what a useless tag. It really does nothing except gives you access to the event. Well, it's funny enough, literally a day later, I did not know the kit in advance. Boom, look at that. Rebel cargo ships. Finally, the first time taking advantage of the cargo ships here. So they're getting reinforced hull, which basically makes it very difficult to kill them off. If you've ever tried to kill off a Razor Crest, you kind of have to do a lot of work to get him knocked out. And then allied crewless rebel tanks, again, taunt for 1 turn. So again, more ways to get taunt going on here. So pre-taunting at the very start of the battle. That's kind of a nice thing. Allied rebel ships can gain the following benefits based on the roll. So cargo ships are immune to critical hits, so it's going to be quite a long time to knock them dead, which is going to be important for Outrider, because the Outrider, we'll do a brief reminder, they're going to be important for getting to that big ultimate ability for Admiral Raddus here. So that's nice. Millennium Falcon as well, being able to stay alive as long as possible. Crewless tanks are immune to critical hits. They gain 35% defense and max health. Now this is probably more important than what meets the eye, because the problem that we've discussed in the past, there's pros and cons. The nice thing about crewless ships, you don't have to gear up a character. Like, you don't have to gear up Biston or Scarecrow Pathfinder. It's not a very sexy thing to gear up. But on the downside is, as gear and relics move, the crewless ship doesn't increase its stats. Unlike ships that have characters, as relics and gear abilities get upgraded, the ship becomes better, kind of keeps up with the game. So this is actually more important than probably what meets the eye here. And then they're going to taunt for 1 turn whenever a rebel ally is inflicted with the debuffs. I mean, the Rebel Y-Wing is already fairly decent. It's kind of important to get through the Hounds too. That's really the only time you call it out, and to get the protection back. It's a much bigger deal now. Real big deal. And are immune to buff immunity while taunting. That is pretty solid right there. That's one way to get around the Houndstooth. You try to get a buff to spell, boom, got that buff immunity, and you go around that sucker and call it a day. It's not going to be quite as easy here. Support cargo ships here. Deal bonus true damage equal to 8% of their max health when they deal physical or special damage. Now, support is the Phantom support. Let me double check. Phantom is an attacker. All right, so let's just see what that might be applying to. Outrider, I believe, is that no, that's the Outrider. I could have sworn Outrider was an attacker base ship. So right there, dang, that's pretty solid right there. They're going to deal bonus damage equal to 8% of their max health when they deal physical or special damage. And keep in mind, the basic already deals damage 3 times. As we said, the basic alone attacks multiple times, inflict critical damage down, and if it's the Outrider's turn, you can reduce the cooldowns of the concussion missiles, which, by the way, These also hit multiple times, 5 times the target enemy. I've already been a big fan of that. And you got to buff the spell on it. Whew. Boy, that's big boost for Outrider. I mean, the other notable ones, I think, is Ghost. Does Ghost support or attacker? These are funny. You don't really have to attacker. And then let's take a look over at Hans Falk. Obviously, an attacker. Yeah. So this is really just calling out. It seems like for the most part, yeah, it seems like it's just calling out the Outriders. That's pretty good. That's really darn good for Outrider. Man. Rebel allies always score critical hits against enemies inflicted with shield disruption, so making quick work out of Houndstooth before they have the chance to use a basic and try to have any attempt at getting rid of shield disruption here. Actually, let me go back real quick. The shield disruption, it can't be resisted. Okay, it can be cleansed though. It can be cleansed though. All right, I was like, I had to double check if the shield disruption was locked in, or it could be cleansed. So when the Houndstooth uses the basic, it'll clean it up. Whenever a Rebel ally scores critical, there's a 20% chance to call another random Rebel ally to assist, including the capital ship. And then whenever a Rebel ally assists, the download progress is increased by 1. Again, kind of going to one of my concerns. How is this going to affect the Admiral Akbar fleet? Because Falcon, it's really seeming like it's needed here. And that's why I kind of preface by saying this is probably not going to be hard. They get 9 instances when you got Outriders, multi-attack, basically you got Han calling people to assist, and you also have these other ways of getting allies to call to assist, and then that download progress is gonna nice little way of getting that progress to go a little faster. Whenever a Rebel ally evades an attack or resists a debuff, they recover 20% health and protection. Yikes. Whew. That's pretty solid right there. Whenever an enemy unit is defeated, Rebel allies recover 20% health and protection. So kind of like how when allies and enemies are defeated, Tarkin gets Terminator. It's kind of something like that. It's kind of reacting to the course of the battle here. So it's gonna be pretty nuts. And then whenever an enemy is summoned, all Rebel allies gain protection up 100% for 2 turns, which I believe that's kind of calling out the Malevolence. Malevolence is really the only one that can summon random ships, the Vulture droid, that is. So you're getting protection up to kind of keep up with the Vulture droid damage and the assist coming in potentially. Whenever an enemy reinforces, Rebel allies gain 150% defense for 1 turn. Man, this compounding with the extra defense and max health and the reinforced hull, it's gonna be one tough cookie to crack. And look at that, we have a little call out to the TIE Advance, a little call out to Vader here. If an enemy TIE Advance is deployed at the start of battle, so likely meant to safeguard it from potential interceptor, because when the only reason to start up with the TIE Advance is, well, one, it's kind of the better way to start up an Imperial lineup, but usually you need to have the TIE Advance to get the most out of the TIE Interceptor. So it's kind of calling out the Tarkin and Chimeras that are trying to do Vader starting, Interceptor reinforcement. You're going to increase the cooldown of the call reinforcement ability for the enemy capital ship by 1. That was literally one of the things that's baked into the kit of the Interceptor. If Vader's starting, you're reducing some of the cooldowns of the capital ship, and it's meant to be a turn 1 reinforcement. No more! Wow, aren't you guys happy? You worked hard for that. I mean, to be fair, I think they're just doing this because they don't want that fleet to counter the Raddus ship here. I just find it a little funny that, you know, it's still, come on. People are just unlocking this thing a couple months ago. It'd still be a decent ship because we have a 3-fleet defense, 3-fleet offensive meta. Seems like it's gonna be tricky to get him out fast enough, because that probably would have been really nice to have. But anyways, moving on here, if the Profundity uses call reinforcement on consecutive turns, sheesh, dispel all buffs on all enemies and dispel all debuffs on allies. My gosh, allies and enemies are immune to Terminator manipulation. So if I'm understanding this correctly, this is probably calling out. This is probably calling out Phantom. Phantom is. This is actually all right, because Phantom's not really a critical component to the Rebel fleet, for Akbar that is. This actually could be very nice, because when you call them in for reinforcement, you're reducing the cooldown of call reinforcement on the ally capture by 1. So basically allowing you consecutive reinforcement abilities. That's probably what it's calling out. So it's like it's almost trying to target things that are the weak ships in the Rebel lineup. We got the more consistent taunts for the Rebel Y-Wing, immune to buff community, tons of extra health, defense, and all that stuff. We got call-outs for Millennium Falcon. We got call-outs for Outrider. Now I think that's directly calling out Phantom, so definitely going to be a reinforcement you're going to want to have baked in here. And then with the last line here, allies and enemies are immune to turn meter manipulation. So it's very casual, very brief. The Jedi Master Kenobi of ships, it would seem like here. And turn meter is kind of the most important thing in Galaxy of Heroes. He who shall get more turn meters shall win. Usually, some wise philosopher said that. I don't know, probably Plato. Anyways, ultimate ability time. I know I teased at the beginning. I thought it's kind of funny. Not as cool as the Death Star. Not as cool as even Admiral the Raddus for Holdo's insta kill. But it's just, you know, it just always kind of drove me crazy in the Kenobi finale, where Vader, like they're pursuing this vessel filled of rebels and Jedi harbors, and they decide that they have to navigate their entire effort, the whole entire capital ship, to just chase after Kenobi. It's like, why doesn't Vader just go do his own thing, go chase after Kenobi, instead of directing everyone to go? It bothered me a little bit. So that's why I think it's funny, because it just doesn't make sense from a strategic view why you send a full capital ship to chase this tiny thing. Just send a couple of TIE fighters and Vader go after it. Anyways, I digress here. Let's check it out. Limited 1 use per battle. Remove the enemy capital ship. Dispel. I like how it's removed. It's just not destroy. Dispel all buffs on all enemies. All enemies are inflicted a speed down for 2 turns and stranded for the rest of the encounter, which can't be copied or dispelled. The Profundity gains the plans acquired. Special ability. Rebel allies gain damage immunity. Yikes. For 1 turn and recover 100% health and protect. So it's kind of like the Raddus since the kill for Holdo. This ability can't be evaded or resisted and requires 100% download progress to activate. Stranded. Take damage equal to 35%. Yeah, they're literally stranded. Take damage equal to 35% of its max health. At the start of its turn, this damage can't defeat a ship. So it's kind of weirdly enough, kind of like when Trey damages you for attacking out of turn, something like that. Can't recover health or protection or gain protection up. So sorry, Houndstooth. Plans acquired. All allies gain advantage, critical damage up, defense penetration, offense up for 2 turns. This ability starts on a cooldown for it. So it's kind of like you can't quite use it right away. You kind of got to wait for it. But once the capital ship leaves, I think the goal is, it's pretty obvious. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't work any other way. You're trying to get this download progress out fast enough so they can't use the Death Star, right? That's kind of how it is, because if the Death Star was used, you would never get around to this. So it's a battle of who gets to their ultimate first here. And it sounds like on offense, it definitely should have an upper hand up against the Executor here. And then grant ability plans acquired, cooldown of 4, where, as we read, all allies gain advantage, critical damage up, defense penetration up, and offense up for 2 turns, and it starts on cooldown. So kind of like what we expected for a Galactic Legend, air quotes, style of capital ship. Very robust kit. How it's going to operate, well, that's what we're going to be testing out. I really want to find out, one, I'm assuming it's going to do well on offense versus Executor. How's the Executor going to handle the Raddus on defense? I'm sure I'm going to have some shard mates be able to get it. How is this going to affect the Admiral Akbar fleet? I'm thinking of the Raven's Claw and still being able to use, for example, Biggs and also Cassian. It might be fine. It could be fine. And Biston, of course, I think it might be adequate still. As we kind of saw, I think we were able to still kind of beat negotiators if need be. Obviously, not as great as before. And I think the last question is, will there be off-meta ways? Usually with these capital ships, it takes a long time, especially once they buff the Executor. It was really tough to find an off-meta counter. Really, the Malevolence was kind of a hit or miss. That's why we call 2 shots a new 1 shot. And of course, once we had the TIE Enchelon come to the game, literally day 1 of testing, within the first hour, we found a way to counter the Executor. So maybe something will get released later on. It very well could be just, you got to do a 2 shot, or you're going to have to just bring in a Raddus mirror match or do an Executor mirror match. And then lastly, just remember one more thing. I know it's not baked into kit reveal. We've done a review on this a while ago, and it was a bit puzzling. What's the purpose of the ship? It was a good ship, but it's meant to be for the Raddus here. Just remember, we're going to get a lot more ways of getting the download progress moving on this ship here. So when you pair everything going on here, look, you're going to be able to get 20% download progress going on here. This also increases download progress. It's going to be pretty quick to get to the big ultimate ability when you're using the Outrider here. So if you're thinking, oh, it doesn't look like it's gonna be fast, it's when you compare all the stuff in the Profundity with what we have going on in the kit reveal. And keep in mind too, the longer you wait to bring out the Outrider, you're getting 20% download progress for each rebel reinforcement called in by the allied capital ship. It's going to be pretty fast. I wouldn't be surprised if this could be done in like maybe 2, maybe 3 Raddus turns, give or take. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Let me know your thoughts on this ship here. These don't happen too often. I think they don't want to call them Galactic Legends, but with ships being such a small meta, not a lot of action, it's a very slow moving part of the game. This is going to be kind of a big deal. And I really hope though that the Executor will still be on par because, you know, you don't want those investments kind of dissipating too quickly. But I'm passing the ball over to you guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. Leave a like, comment down below. Remember, we'll be testing out later on this weekend. Of course, always remember on top of that, that it's great to be in the Empire today.